Alright, gather round, you degenerates and connoisseurs of chaos. Today, we're diving headfirst into a topic guaranteed to piss off pretty much everyone and probably get me demonetized. But hey, that's why you're here, right? Ha ha ha. We're talking about something so fundamental, so baked into our very existence, it's practically invisible until someone points it out. Culture. More specifically, we're going to bravely, or perhaps foolishly, wander into the minefield of white culture versus black culture. Not in some woke virtue signaling way, but in a let's actually peel back the layers of history and see how two massive, incredibly diverse cultural behemoths evolved kind of way. Because let's be real, most people hear those terms and immediately picture Twitter arguments or awkward family dinners. I'm talking about millennia of human innovation, struggles, triumphs, and some seriously weird traditions that shaped literally billions of lives. So buckle up, buttercups, because this is going to be a wild ride through the annals of human wacky and wonderful. First off, let's get a basic understanding of what the hell culture even is, beyond just arguing about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. It's not just your grandma's recipes or your uncle's questionable dance moves at weddings. Culture is the whole damn package. The shared traditions, the beliefs you cling to even when they make no sense, the values you live by, the language you cuss in, the art that makes you go, huh? And the intricate ways societies organize themselves, from banging rocks together to designing skyscrapers. It's the invisible operating system running in the background of billions of human minds. Now, when we say white culture in this context, we're primarily talking about the sprawling, ever-mutating cultural traditions that germinated and blossomed across the European continent. Think ancient Greeks doing philosophy naked, Romans building roads that still hold up better than yours, medieval knights getting syphilis and fighting for God, and the Renaissance literally dragging humanity out of the Dark Ages by its bootstraps, which were probably made of velvet. It's a huge, messy, contradictory tapestry woven over thousands of years. And black culture, we're zeroing in on the rich, incredibly diverse cultural traditions that develop not just in a place, but across the vast, breathtaking, and often brutal continent of sub-Saharan Africa. From the nomadic tribes trekking across savannas to the opulent, gold-filled kingdoms that would make European royalty blush, it's a culture forged in fiery heat, under incredible celestial observation, with an emphasis on community and rhythm that echoes through time. These aren't monolithic blocks, folks. They're sprawling, complex ecosystems of human experience. Understanding this isn't about superiority or inferiority. It's about appreciating the sheer, mind-boggling variety of human existence. Let's dig in. So why did these two massive branches of humanity evolve so differently? Surprise, surprise, geography and environment are the ultimate puppet masters. Think about Europe. Mostly temperate climate, lots of easy access to water via navigable rivers and coastlines. This wasn't some random luck. This was prime real estate for early human settlements. Rivers like the Danube, Rhine and Seine were ancient superhighways, making trade and communication significantly easier. This fostered the growth of cities, the exchange of ideas, and eventually, empires. You had distinct seasons which pretty much forced innovation in agriculture and storage if you didn't want to freeze your ass off or starve in winter. The land was generally fertile, supporting dense populations, which of course then required complex social structures, laws, and militaries to keep everyone from just murdering each other. You can almost hear the Romans going, okay, we need rules and also aqueducts. Now, shift your gaze to sub-Saharan Africa. Instead of a fairly consistent temperate zone, you've got a mind-boggling array of environments. Deserts so vast, they eat entire armies. Rainforests so dense, they chew up everything man-made. Savannas stretching further than the eye can see. Towering mountain ranges and massive lakes. This wasn't a cozy, easily traversable landscape like much of Europe. Getting from one culture zone to another could be a Herculean task. What does this mean for culture? It meant an insane spectrum of cultural variations. You had nomadic groups perfectly adapted to arid lands, intricate agricultural societies in fertile river valleys, and sophisticated city-states thriving on trade routes. The sheer diversity of environments meant an equally diverse set of strategies for survival, social organization, and belief systems. It's not one African culture, folks. It's hundreds, arguably thousands, each a masterpiece of adaptation. And often, these cultures developed in relative isolation for long periods due to those geographical barriers, leading to unique evolutions. Now, let's fast forward a bit and look at some of the OG civilizations from both regions, because this is where the real history nerds get their fix. In Europe, the usual suspects immediately come to mind: ancient Greece and Rome. The Greeks gave us democracy, a system we now clumsily try to uphold while arguing on Twitter. They gave us philosophy, the Olympics, where people competed naked, just saying, theatre and architecture that still makes your local city hall look like a Lego set. Then the Romans rolled in, took all the Greek stuff, made it bigger, arguably better, and then paved the entire known world with roads. They gave us law, engineering, and a standing army that made everyone else wet their pants. Fast forward through the glorious chaos of the Dark Ages, where Europe was basically a giant mosh pit of barbarians and monks, and you get to the light at the end of the tunnel. The Renaissance. This was Europe's "oops, we forgot how to read for 1,000 years, let's fix that" moment. Art, science, literature exploded, paving the way for the modern world as we know it. Meanwhile, back in Africa, civilizations were absolutely crushing it in their own spectacular ways. While Europe was busy with feudal lords and plagues, the Kingdom of Mali was rolling in gold, under rulers like Mansa Musa, who was so rich he probably made Jeff Bezos look like a panhandler. His pilgrimage to Mecca reportedly depressed gold prices for years. That's how much bling he had. Then you have the Songhai Empire, building on Mali's legacy, establishing massive trade networks and centers of learning like Timbuktu, attracting scholars from across the globe. And don't forget Great Zimbabwe, a massive stone city built without mortar, a testament to incredible engineering and social organization, whose very existence blew the minds of early European explorers who couldn't fathom complex African societies. And then there's Ethiopia, a Christian kingdom that maintained its independence for centuries, developing a written language and magnificent rock-hewn churches, with a backstory so epic it sounds like a movie script. Here's the kicker, and it's a big one: how history was preserved. European cultures, largely influenced by Roman and Greek traditions, leaned heavily on written records, laws, histories, philosophies, literature. It was all etched into papyrus, parchment, and eventually paper. This meant a linear, documented history, easily copied and disseminated, though often biased by whoever was holding the pen. Serious. African societies, while some, like Ethiopia, had written traditions, often relied more heavily on oral tradition. Griots, revered storytellers and historians, were the living libraries, memorizing epic narratives, genealogies, and traditions. The history was dynamic, shaped by performance and community. This meant incredibly rich cultural preservation, but also a vulnerability. When those communities were disrupted, when the griots were silenced or their lineage broken, sometimes entire swaths of history could be lost or deliberately erased. That's a fundamental difference in how knowledge and legacy were passed down, and it profoundly impacts how we understand these histories today. Okay, so we've seen the geographical shaping and the rise of empires. But what about the nitty-gritty? The invisible threads that weave through the fabric of daily life. I'm talking about core social values. These aren't just quaint customs. They're the bedrock of how people interact, how they see the world, and how societies function. In many European societies post-Roman collapse, evolving through feudalism and eventually colonialism, you often saw a strong emphasis on individualism. The idea of the individual, their rights, their property, their personal achievements. You can trace this through Enlightenment philosophers who championed individual liberty, through the rise of capitalism, and even into modern Western legal systems, where the individual is often the central unit of justice. Written law, codified and universal, became paramount. Property rights were a huge deal. Your name, your family's name, your personal legacy, these were often incredibly important. This isn't to say community wasn't important, but the spotlight often shone on the individual and their specific contribution. This manifested in everything from art glorifying individual heroes to political systems designed around individual representation. Even the way we tell stories often focuses on a single protagonist's journey. Flip the coin to many African societies, and you often find an emphasis on extended family and communal networks. The idea that it takes a village isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a deeply ingrained societal principle. Your identity isn't just yours, it's intricately woven into your family, your clan, your tribe, your community. Decisions are often made communally. Support systems are built on these vast kinship networks. Oral storytelling wasn't just history, it was a communal activity, entertainment, and a way to reinforce shared values and belonging. Art and music often served communal purposes, from rituals to celebrations, designed to bring people together, rather than just being for individual appreciation or display. Leadership structures frequently emphasized consensus and wisdom from elders, rather than purely individual authority. It's a beautifully intricate web of interdependence, where your personal well-being is often inextricably linked to the well-being of the group. These contrasting values, individualism versus communalism, didn't just stay in polite conversation. They shaped everything. Art in Europe often glorified individual genius. Think Michelangelo's David, a singular, powerful figure. Music evolved with complex individual compositional styles. Leadership was often monarchical or aristocratic, with power concentrated in a few individuals or families. In African cultures, Art often served ritualistic or spiritual purposes for the community. Music was frequently participatory, with call and response forms, drumming and dance being collective expressions. Leadership might involve councils of elders or chiefs, whose authority was derived from their wisdom and ability to unify the community. Even daily life, from child rearing to farming, had different rhythms and structures based on these underlying values. Now, let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Global historical events, specifically the twin disasters of European colonization and the transatlantic slave trade. This wasn't some minor dust-up. This was a cataclysmic, world-altering event that fundamentally disrupted African cultures and forcibly spread European cultural systems across the globe. This era didn't just shift borders, it shattered societies, suppressed indigenous languages and religions, and imposed European governance, education, and economic models on vast swathes of the world. The transatlantic slave trade ripped millions of people from their homes, their cultures, and their identities, scattering them across the Americas, forcing them to adapt, to survive, and to rebuild cultural elements from the ashes. It created power imbalances so profound that their echoes are still reverberating today. The forced imposition of European cultural systems often came with the insidious idea of civilizing the savage, creating a hierarchy where European culture was seen as superior and African cultures were devalued, demonized, or simply ignored. This wasn't just about military might. It was a full frontal assault on identity and self-worth. This historical trauma isn't just something in dusty textbooks. It's baked into modern society, influencing perceptions, opportunities, and even the very language we use to discuss these topics. Acknowledging this isn't about guilt-tripping. It's about understanding that these events created a massively uneven playing field, influencing how cultures evolved and how they were perceived by the world. It's part of the raw, uncomfortable, yet absolutely necessary history we need to confront. Okay, deep breath, because now we get to the cool stuff, the global impact and cultural exchange. Despite all the hardship, all the conflict, both of these cultural mega systems have left indelible marks on the entire planet. European culture, through its historical dominance, its technological advances, and its institutions, has undeniably shaped the modern world. Think about it. Our global education systems, scientific methodologies, forms of government, democracy, parliamentarianism, and much of our technology, from the printing press to the internet, have roots in European intellectual and cultural traditions. Common law, civil law, architectural styles, classical music, these are all pervasive. You can't escape them. Walk into almost any major city on Earth and you'll see buildings, institutions, and systems that owe a debt to European cultural development. But let's not pretend it's a one-way street, because that's where the real magic happens. African and African diaspora culture has unleashed a tidal wave of influence that has absolutely dominated global popular culture. Think about it. Would modern music even exist without the blues? We're talking jazz, soul, rock and roll, reggae, hip-hop. The entire soundtrack of the last century is steeped in African rhythms, melodies, and storytelling traditions. Dance forms, from the samba to the breakdance, have roots there. Language itself, countless words and phrases, slang, and ways of speaking have entered the global lexicon. Fashion, art, even sports, from the style of play to the sheer athletic dominance in many fields, often show a clear African or diaspora influence. You're hearing it in your car, seeing it in your feeds, wearing it on your back. It's not just black culture, it's global culture, undeniably and profoundly shaped by the ingenuity and resilience of people of African descent. To say it's just entertainment trivializes the monumental impact. Today, we live in a wild, beautiful, often confusing blender of cultures. It's not white culture or black culture anymore. It's a continuous, often messy, sometimes glorious exchange. Look at cuisine, Italian pasta with African spices. Look at media, Hollywood blockbusters infused with global storytelling influences. Music that seamlessly blends hip-hop beats with traditional European instrumentation. Our everyday language is a mashup. Our fashion is a mashup. Our entire lives are a mashup. So, what have we learned from this whirlwind tour? We've seen that white culture and black culture, while incredibly broad terms, represent millennia of distinct, yet often intertwined human development. They were shaped by everything from the soil under their feet to the stars above their heads, leading to different approaches to society, law, art, and even history itself. We saw how global events, particularly colonization and slavery, threw a massive wrench into the gears, creating immense suffering and lasting power imbalances that still echo in our modern world. But crucially, we've also seen that despite, and often in direct response to these historical forces, both cultural traditions have contributed massively to the tapestry of human history. Understanding these differences isn't about drawing lines in the sand or igniting silly arguments. It's about appreciating the sheer, overwhelming diversity of human ingenuity. It's about recognizing that every culture, every tradition, every group of people has faced unique challenges and created unique solutions that have enriched us all. It's about realizing that the world we live in today, the one where you're watching this video, is a grand, chaotic, beautiful culmination of countless historical narratives blending, clashing, and evolving. So next time you hear someone casually toss around terms like white culture or black culture, maybe you'll have a bit more context, a bit more historical nuance, and a bit more appreciation for the journey. Because true understanding comes from looking past the headlines and diving into the glorious, often grotesque mess of history. What are your thoughts on how these cultures have influenced your life, either directly or indirectly? Drop a comment below, but try to keep it civil, alright? We're talking history here, not YouTube comment section anarchy. If you found this dive into the messy, fascinating world of cultural evolution vaguely entertaining or mildly thought-provoking, hit that like button, subscribe for more historical deep dives, and maybe share this with someone who needs a dose of nuanced history. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and don't let anyone tell you history isn't wild.